it's Erica. Welcome back to Maniacal Reader. Today I'm doing my June wrap-up. Now in my May wrap-up, I mentioned that I was filming it early, and because of that, I wasn't able to tell you my thoughts on some of the books that I read at the end of May, so I'll go ahead and show you those books first, and then we'll get into the books I read in June. The first book is Fall With Me by J. Lynn. This is the fourth book in her Wait For You series, and the Wait For You series is a new adult romance series. This fourth book follows Calla's best friend Roxy. Roxy is a bartender at a bar called Mona's in the series. Roxy has loved Reese since she was 15. Something happened between them one weird night, and they haven't been talking since, for 11 months. Reese has come into contact with Roxy again because he wants to start a relationship with her. And Reese and Roxy were friends once. Roxy is open to this because she agrees that her and Reese were good friends, but she's not sure if she should start a relationship with him. Also, Roxy is dealing with something that happened to her best friend Charlie years ago, and she feels guilty over it. She feels like it's her fault. There's been a strange stalker that has been doing terrible things to women in the area, and this stalker might be after Roxy. So there's definitely a lot going on in this book. I thought Roxy's relationship with Charlie was sweet in this book. When Reese comes back into Roxy's life, the chemistry between them is off the charts, and her feelings for him resurface. Roxy also feels guilty, though, about a lie she told Reese, about the strange night that happened between them, because Reese was drunk, and all this time he thinks that something happened between them that didn't. So Roxy is carrying guilt over that strange night. This guilt is affecting her current relationship with Reese. Roxy isn't sure how to tell Reese about what happened, or if she should tell him at all. Once they clear the air, the relationship between them is perfect. You could tell that they both cared for each other for a long time, but the timing of their relationship has always seemed off. Reese has also been dealing with a tragic event in his past, and sometimes this incident still bothers him. Like I said, there's a lot going on between these two characters, and both of them carry a lot of baggage. That being said, Reese is so sweet to Roxy, and you can tell that he really loves her. It's not really revealed that Roxy is dealing with a stalker right away, but strange things have been happening in her apartment, and she's not really sure if she's done them by coincidence or if someone is watching her and doing these strange things in her apartment. Near the middle of the book, I enjoyed the plot twist when we actually find out who the stalker is. I had guessed who the stalker is early on in the book, so I wasn't surprised as to who the stalker was, but I was surprised as to how the stalker was revealed in the book. I really liked this book. The relationship did have its ups and downs, but I loved how the relationship grew as the book went on, and how Roxy realized that it's okay to be vulnerable and make her own decisions in life. The incident that happened with her best friend Charlie has been affecting her life and her choices for 6 years. If I had to choose a favorite out of the Wait For You series, this fourth book, Fall With Me, would be it. The next book in the series is Forever With You. This is the fifth book in the series. This book follows Roxy's best friend Nick, who's also a bartender at Mona's, and his relationship with a girl named Stephanie. Stephanie hasn't really been portrayed in a positive light previously on in the series, so we also get to learn more about her. Nick is a quiet and sensitive guy, and he doesn't do relationships at all. He only has one-night stands with girls. He never calls them back or remembers any of their names. That changes when Nick meets Steph in the bar one night, and sparks between them fly. They have a one-night stand and they agree that it's only for one night, but then Stephanie comes back to the bar and throws Nick off. He didn't expect her to come back to the bar or come back to him. Nick is kind of rude to her at the beginning of the book, but Stephanie puts Nick in his place, and from then on, Nick can't forget about Steph. Nick finds himself wanting to apologize to Steph for how he acted, and from there, he finds himself wanting to try to be friends with Steph. However, some unexpected news brings them closer, and Steph finds out that she's pregnant from this one-night stand. Because of the pregnancy, their relationship dynamic changes, and they both have to decide what to do about this baby. If they want it, or if they want to try to stay in a relationship now that Steph is pregnant, they have to figure all that out. This was a sweet romance. You can tell that Stephanie and Nick definitely have an attraction to each other. And when Stephanie finds out that she's pregnant, it only makes sense for them to try to be in a relationship. The relationship develops slowly between these two characters. Nick and Stephanie slowly find themselves developing deeper feelings for each other. But Stephanie isn't sure if Nick wants to be with her because she's pregnant or just wants to be with her with or without the baby. There's miscommunication in their relationship, which leaves Steph questioning everything. I wasn't expecting the plot twist and such an emotional book, but I do have to say the plot twist only brought Nick and Stephanie closer together. I loved the conclusion to this book. I really liked Nick as a character. At first he seems like a cheesy guy who's a womanizer and only does one-night stands, but Nick does have some depth to him. Steph is a strong girl who doesn't take crap from anyone, and she was a straight-A student in college, and she's actually good at her job, so she's a smart, good girl. I really liked this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The final book in the Wait For You series is Fire in You. This book follows a girl named Jillian and her romance with a guy named Brock. Brock and Jillian are characters that we met previously on in the series, but this book follows their relationship. Jillian is one of Stephanie's friends, and Brock is a pro wrestler that all the guys in this series are fond of. Brock and Jillian are childhood friends because Jillian's dad took him into their family one night after an incident. Brock has always thought of Jillian as a sister, but Jillian has always wanted Brock to see her as something more. There was a dangerous incident that happened at Mona's one night that shattered Jillian's relationship with Brock. Now that Jillian has taken a job at her father's martial arts academy, it turns out that Brock is now her new boss, since he's inserted himself back into her life again. When Brock comes back into her life, Jillian isn't sure if she should quit her job because she's uncomfortable being around Brock. Brock and her develop an attraction to each other, but Jillian isn't sure if she wants to get into a relationship with him. This is a good friends to lovers romance. There's misunderstandings about each other's lives in this book. Brock is no longer engaged to this person that Jillian thought, but she's still unsure if she should get into a relationship with him because of the dangerous incident that happened at Mona's. Also, Brock isn't sure if he's worthy of Jillian's affection, since he also feels guilty for that night. I thought Jillian and Brock's chemistry was off the charts. I liked how there was a slow burn romance. I enjoyed the plot twist in this book, but I wasn't expecting so much tension being dragged out to the very end in this book. That sort of surprised me, and it's obvious that Jillian and Brock have cared for each other since the beginning. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was really a fantastic conclusion to this series. I could definitely see myself rereading this series in the future. And one of the last books I read in May was The Program by Suzanne Young. This is the first book in a YA dystopian duology. This book is about a world where suicide has become an epidemic. And this book follows 2 characters named James and Sloane, who are in a relationship with each other. In this world, you're not supposed to have depressing emotions or negative emotions at all. In order to defeat this suicide epidemic, society has come up with the program. But when you go through the program, your memories of your previous life are erased, and you become someone new. Sloane and James are determined to get away from the program because they don't want the program coming after them. I only give this book 3 stars. I enjoyed the world building in this first book more than anything else, but I wasn't really attached to the characters or the relationship between Sloane and James. I didn't really feel like there was a genuine connection between these characters, and we were just told that they were in a relationship and not really shown the connection between them. Also, I found myself liking the plot more than the characters, so that's why I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. The book had an interesting premise and an action plot, but since I found myself not really liking any of the characters, I didn't really love this book. I only somewhat liked it. I also read The Treatment right after the program. This is the second book in the Treatment duology. I liked the expansion of the world in the second book, but again, I didn't find myself attached to any of the characters, and I felt that the plot was too focused on the love triangle between Sloane, James, and another character named Ram, not really much else. I don't see myself rereading this duology, and I was planning on continuing the rest of the series since this series has been expanded since the duology, but I ultimately decided not to continue on with the series since I wasn't really invested in it that much. Now let's get on to the books that I read in June. The first book I read in June was The Hookup by Kristen Callahan, who is a guy named Drew and his romance with a girl named Anna. Drew is a big guy on campus. He's famous for his football, and everyone loves him. Because his life is so busy with football, Drew isn't really into relationships, but this all changes when he meets Anna. He comes across Anna when Anna accidentally bumps into him on her way to class one day. The two become friends and they share humorous banter with each other, but Drew finds his feelings for Anna growing. Although Anna is just determined to keep their relationship exclusively about hookups and not anything deeper. Anna is a quiet girl who isn't really a fan of relationships because she's been burned by relationships in the past and her parents are divorced, so she doesn't really have a frame of reference as to what a good relationship is supposed to be. So because of that, she's determined to keep Drew at arm's length. At first, Drew seems like a superficial guy, but later on, the reader learned that he does have depth to him. Drew lost his parents in some sort of boating accident a few years ago, and he's still trying to come to terms with that. Drew and Anna have a lot of chemistry between them, and the dynamic in their relationship seems fine until something unexpectedly happens to Drew. He comes down with a football injury. Anna realizes that it's only so long that she can keep Drew at arm's length, and her feelings for Drew become genuine. I loved how this book wrapped up, and I liked how the relationship developed. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Naturally, the next book I read was The Frenzel by Kristen Callahan. This is book 2 in the Game On series, and this book follows Drew's best friend Gray and his romance with a girl named Ivy Mackenzie. Gray and Ivy form an unlikely friendship over her car. Gray is borrowing her car right now, since he lent his truck to Drew and Anna to help them out. Ivy is also the daughter of the potential sports agent that Gray wants to sign with once he makes it to the NFL. This potential agent is letting him borrow Ivy's car since Ivy is out of town. Gray and Ivy form a strong friendship over her car, and Gray feels like Ivy is the easiest person to talk to, even though he's never had a relationship with a girl before. When Ivy comes back into town, Gray and Ivy are inseparable. They find themselves growing attracted to each other, but they don't want to do anything about it because they don't want to ruin their good friendship. When Gray finally does make a move, there are miscommunications in their relationship, and it's hard for Ivy to give him a second chance. When they decide to clear the air with each other and decide to really start having a good relationship, everything seems fine until it isn't. I liked the unexpected plot twist in the book. I wasn't expecting it, and this plot twist definitely tests the relationship. I loved how everything in this book wrapped up though. Ivy and Gray have such strong chemistry since they were such good friends first, and they really care about each other. This was an awesome friends to lovers romance. I believe I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read in June was The Game Plan by Kristen Callahan. This is the third book in the Game On series. It follows Gray's best friend named Dex. Dex, as well as all the other characters, are in the NFL, now that they've all graduated from college. Dex has a romance with Ivy's younger sister, Fiona. Dex is a sensitive and quiet guy who doesn't really say much, and Fiona is definitely more of a carefree, wild person. But the two of them mesh well together, since Dex has always had a crush on Fiona for a long time, but Fiona has just never noticed. I loved how the relationship developed slowly and naturally in this book. Dex never pressured Fiona to label their relationship. I really liked that about him. Even though Dex is an adult in the NFL, he doesn't really have a lot of experience with girls, and absolutely no experience with sex. I liked how Fiona was understanding about that in their relationship, and she was willing to take the relationship slow. There wasn't really as much dramatic tension or exciting plot twists in this book, but I was okay with that. This third book just seemed like a genuine romance. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Hot Shot by Kristen Callahan. This is the 4th book in the Game On series, and it's the current book that's out in the series right now. This book follows Dex's best friend, Finn, and his romance with a photographer named Chess. Chess and Finn cross paths when Chess is assigned to do a photography shoot of a football calendar, taking photographs of different football teams. Finn and Chess sort of get off on the wrong foot, since he says the wrong things to her when they first meet. But Chess makes Finn comfortable during the photo shoot, and from there they develop a good friendship with each other. Soon, though, their friendship develops into something more. I wasn't expecting Finn's backstory in this book, and I thought his backstory provided a lot of depth to him. It was definitely surprising. I liked the slow burn nature of Finn and Chess's romance, and I liked the conclusion to this book. I just felt the conclusion was dragged out a little too long. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I'll definitely continue on with this series in the future. The 5th book in the series is supposed to be published in 2017, so I'm looking forward to continuing on with this series. The next book I read was Boss Man by Vi Keeland. This is a new adult romance standalone. It follows this girl named Reese, who is on a bad date with a guy that she's not really interested in. So at the start of the book, she goes into the washroom and makes a distress call to her best friend complaining about this date. And when Reese is in the washroom, she comes across this guy who's rude to her. She doesn't really know what to make of this guy. When she comes out of the washroom, she goes back to her table. But then the guy she saw in the washroom comes towards her table and starts telling her and her date old stories about their childhood together. But Reese and this guy have never met. Reese doesn't think that she'll see this guy again. But it turns out a few months later, this guy happens to be her new boss. Her new boss, named Chase Parker, is attracted to Reese from the very beginning, but she doesn't want to give into a relationship with him since she's afraid how she'll be perceived at work. But Reese and Chase eventually decide to sleep together. The sexual tension between them and the chemistry between them is off the charts, and their feelings for each other slowly grow. When I first started the book, I didn't know what to make of Chase, just like the reader. He came off as this confident, overly cocky boss who was only interested in getting together with Reese. But as the story went on, I realized that Chase actually had some depth to him. This is evident in his point of view chapters from 7 years ago, where he talks about a previous relationship that had a significant impact on him. I wasn't expecting these past chapters from Chase, since the book is mostly told from Reese's point of view, but I'm glad these past chapters were in there because through those chapters we get to learn a lot more about Chase. I wasn't sure how Chase's past chapters would be integrated with the overall present story of the book. We don't get to find this out until the last half of the book, what this past relationship was about and how it impacted him. I wasn't expecting the twist in this book because of those past chapters, so I was really surprised. I was even more surprised by another revelation into this past relationship. However, I loved the conclusion to this book. It was perfect. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. This was my first Vi Keeland book, and since I really liked this book, I'll definitely be checking out more of her books in the future. This book was the June pick for the New Adulting Central Book Club that I'm a part of, but since the schedules of the leaders have been hectic lately, they've also chosen this book to be the July pick for the group. With that said, the live show discussion of this book has changed. The live show will now be on August 5th at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Ilsa's channel. I'll leave the information for the group down below in case you guys want to join the group and find out more about new adult books. I hope you'll be able to join us for the live show and hear an in-depth discussion of this book. And the last book I read in June was obviously Damaged Like Us by Kristen Becker-Ritchie. This book is the first book in a new spin-off series after the Addicted series. This series follows the children of the addicted characters from the previous series. This first book followed Lauryn Hill's oldest son, Maximoff, and his relationship with his bodyguard, Pharaoh. This is an MM romance, which I've never read before, and because of that I wasn't sure if I was really going to like this book, but I quickly fell for Maximoff and Pharaoh hard. I liked seeing Maximoff grown up. He's a very responsible character who cares a lot about his family and thinks about others' needs. This just shows the fantastic way that Lo and Lily raised him. I'm proud of them for that, and I really like Maximoff. I also like Pharaoh. He is a bad boy, and he sort of does things unconventionally, but he's a really good bodyguard, and he's determined to protect Maximoff at all costs. The addicted characters and their children are some of the most famous people in the world, and that's why they need bodyguards all around them. It's forbidden to become romantically involved or emotionally attached to your bodyguard. Maximoff has liked Pharaoh since he was 16 years old, so this relationship has been a long time coming. I loved the dynamic in their relationship. It was really sweet. I understand how Maximoff has a hard time being vulnerable. He's never had a relationship and prefers no strings attached sex since he has to be careful in his life because he's not sure if other people want him for his fame or money or something else. Since he has a difficult time being vulnerable, he's not sure if he should label this relationship, and he's not sure if Pharaoh feels the same way about him. I also enjoyed seeing Jane Cobalt in this book since Mafi and Jane are really good friends. They are so close that they're almost like fraternal twins, like brother and sister. There wasn't much of Lily and Lo or Rose and Connor or Reich and Daisy in this book, but their presence was definitely there. There's also an interesting plot twist near the end of this book, which I was not expecting at all. It came out of the blue. I'm looking forward to seeing the consequences that come out of what happened at the end of the book, and if there will be tension between Mafi and any of his family members because of it. Those are all of the books that I read at the end of May and all through June. Comment down below and tell me what you read in June. I'd love to know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one.